Today, I want to tell you a Jeep story. Actually, I want to tell you the story of 3 Jeeps and a family legacy. I guess we all became involved with Jeeps in our own way. They are a lifestyle for some, a tool for others, but for a few, it's a family legacy. That's my story. There's not a day since I was born that a Jeep, one that's personal to me, has not been a simple arm's length or a short drive away. The story begins with my dad in 1949. Dad was discharged from the Marine Corps in 1946. He spent his time in the Pacific and in China. In 1949, he found this surplus 1943 MB in the lot of a local car dealer and he bought it. The name of the dealership was Irwin Motors. And what makes this even more interesting is before it was Irwin Motors, in the 1920s or 30s, that same building housed a Willys Overland dealership. I asked him once why he bought the Jeep and he told me that he knew what they were capable of, having been exposed to them during the war. He also knew that the Jeep would be a good tool for getting into the backcountry for hunting. Dad used that Jeep for everything, hunting, to haul stuff, and like a tractor mowing the fields. The Jeep also became a backdrop for the glamour shots of my aunts. My dad dated my mom in that Jeep, and Mom tells me he would scare the hell out of her tearing down the roads with no doors and no top. And my uncle tells me how he drove it to the floor for Hartford, Connecticut from home with that little 4 screaming for mercy.
I drove it to that Jeep to Connecticut after I got out of the Navy. Went down when I went to work for Pratt & Whitney. I had it floored all the way, but that was a trip and a half.
And I learned to drive in the MB, in the fields, at 10 or 12 years old. The keys were always in it, and I knew how to reach the floor starter. That MB would eventually become a symbol for me of independence and imagination. We had the Jeep restored, and I had a chance to take my dad for a ride in it this summer. Dad's 93. My life changed September 1969. I was 15, in love with cars, and had just subscribed to Hot Rod magazine. Flipping through the September issue of the mag, I get to page 96 and I see this Jeep. Like ours, but different. This hot-rodded Jeep was a Ford GPW built by Lloyd White. Lloyd instantly became my hero. I wanted a Jeep just like Lloyd's. But no matter how much I wanted that for our MB, I knew that was not going to happen. More about that later in the video. In 2014, when my cousin and I made the decision to start the restoration of our Willys, I joined the Military Vehicle Preservation Association, hoping to learn more about the history and restoration of these old Jeeps. Reading one of their publications, I saw a short article referencing a series of self-published history fact books written by Lloyd White out of Oregon, and wondered if all these years later, if it could be the same Lloyd White from Hot Rod magazine. I sent an email asking about purchasing the books and if he was the Lloyd White from the magazine. He was, and he still had the GPW. For the next several months, I continued an email conversation with Lloyd about our Jeep. How many get to connect with a childhood hero 45 years later? The next Jeep and the next year for significant change was 1976. I bought my 1966 CJ5 Tuxedo Park from a friend in October. The Jeep had 46,650 miles on it. It had the dauntless V6, and I came to have a healthy respect for that V6 in that little Jeep. Before snow, I built a wooden top for it and drove the Jeep all that winter. The only photo I have of it before I tore it down that coming spring, was taken during the infamous Northeast blizzard of 1977. 76 was also a marquee year for another change in my life. I met the girl of my dreams. Cliché, I know, but still married after all these years. We weren't married yet, but that same winter Lynn and I dated in the Jeep, kind of like my mom and dad 25 years before in the MB. One cold, sunny, beautiful day, I tried to take her out for her first off-road Jeep ride. I only got so far. The snow, it was deeper than the Jeep was tall. Got us buried quickly. So we walked for nearly a quarter mile. I wanted to show her this little pond I knew about hidden deep back in the woods, and usually accessible only by four-wheel drive. I snapped a few photos on the way. Was good for kids in their 20s, would probably kill us today. Memories being what they are, the dates on the back of the disassembly photos are spring of 1977. And all the date stamps on the accessory and speed parts catalogs are from 1977 and 78. So my story is, I tore the Jeep down in 1977. Well, you remember Lloyd White? This little CJ was going to be my hot-rodded Jeep. I was finally going to get to do what I had wanted to do back in 1969. But this was a Northeast Jeep, and the body suffered all the ills one would expect from road salt and hard living. I bought a fiberglass body, mostly because no one was replicating the steel tubs at the time. But I guess you'll have to wait for that one. I'll tell that story in a future video. I worked hard and always on this project. Time and money for an unmarried guy in his mid-20s was easy. Oh, did I tell you that I married the girl of my dreams? Or that the job began to take on more significance? And that both demanded more time and money? Well, here we are 42 years later, starting where we left off. I hope you subscribe to the channel and watch how this turns out. Lynn and I are heading up to the Lakes region of New Hampshire, and we drive by this Jeep, a flat fender. I go, "Ooh, Jeep, for sale." Lynn goes, "No." She just doesn't get it. I tell her, if it's there when we drive home, we're going to stop and look. It was, we did. A 1946 CJ2A in really nice shape. Give the owner a down payment and tell him we'll be back tomorrow to pick it up. When we get there with the trailer, he tells me he had 3 other calls. Sometimes you just got to know when to pull the trigger. We pack it up. It's raining like summer. I get it back to my dad's place because at the time, he was the only one with a place to store it. Now, if you're a regular to this channel, then you've seen the videos on this Jeep. Not all things were perfect, but we keep making them better. This CJ5 build is my way of closing the story. This series won't be a simple or quick one to make, but I hope if you've watched it this far, you'll keep coming back. I'd really like it if you'd share some of your own Jeep stories in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe to my channel, ring the bell so you get notified the next time I post a video. Thanks for watching.